My husband of 30 years marriage had an affair. When I confronted him with the fact that he had been unfaithful, he showed no remorse. My husband did not take offense and said, "I will not pay alimony and child support." "You're going to leave on your own, aren't you?" I complied with his request. There was one thing I had not told my husband. My name is Rachel. My husband Nicholas and I have been married for 30 years, and our 2 children are already in high school. Nicholas was so busy with work when he was young that the children have few memories of spending time with their father. It was common at that time for men to not participate in child rearing, so after I gave birth and quit my job, I have been raising our children by myself ever since. My parents had died before I married, so I had no one to rely on. Nicholas, who professed that he was better off earning money outside the home than I was as a housewife, always said to me, "You have a good life just playing with your kids at home, don't you?" Even on his days off, Nicholas never took his children to the park and spent all day at home just hanging around because he was tired from work. Looking at him, I have been doing housework and childcare without a break. When he came home from work and the house was a mess or dinner was not ready, he would get furious, so I was always on my toes. When Jacob, our eldest son, developed a fever, Nicholas maintained his stance that childcare is a mother's job, and did not try to help at all. Because of that, I had to take Jacob, who was still running a fever, to the hospital with our youngest daughter Ava. When the children reached puberty, they began to rebel against their father's attitude, and a period of rebellion ensued during which they would not even speak to him. Dad was always at work and had no interest in us at all. And he always makes fun of Mom, too, and it pisses me off. The children began to ignore their father. Nicholas, who had little love for his children basically, decided that if that was the case, he would ignore them as well, and a period of not speaking to each other followed, and the atmosphere in the house became quite bleak. However, as the children reached high school age, they began to talk to each other at least a little more. Nicholas, who had always seemed to be in a bad mood, is in a better mood these days. His work is as busy as ever, and there are more and more times when he has to leave home until morning for business or stay overnight on business trips, but he still seems to be enjoying himself, which means that his work is probably fulfilling. I had envisioned a future in which the children would become independent, and after Nicholas retired, the 2 of us would enjoy a peaceful retirement together. However, it was only a few days ago that I learned that I had been naive. When I was going to take Nicholas's suit to the dry cleaners, I found a receipt for a restaurant for 2 that he had used on a date and a purchase receipt for a brand that was clearly women's. Suspicious, I checked my credit card statement, which I had left to Nicholas, and found a record of a payment at a hot spring hotel on a date when he was supposed to have been away on a business trip. All of this pointed to one thing. Yes, Nicholas had lied to me and cheated on me. What was fulfilling was not his work, but his private life. The reason he was in a good mood recently was because he was having fun with the person he was cheating on me with. From there, I checked up on Nicholas's behavior. He had no way of knowing that I was aware of the affair, and he was sloppy with his phone, so it was easy to identify the person with whom he was having an affair. The woman with whom Nicholas was having an affair was a woman at a club he frequented. She was an older woman in the club and seemed to be quite uncomfortable there, but Nicholas liked her a lot and picked her up every time he went. At first he just went there as a customer, but eventually they started seeing each other outside the club, and now she had quit the club and they seemed to have deepened their relationship, not as customers but as lovers. She seemed to be working part-time during the day after quitting the club, but due to her extravagant lifestyle, which was the same as when she was working at the club, it was hard to believe that she was making ends meet on her part-time salary alone. Perhaps Nicholas contributes what is not enough. Not only did he give her money to live on, but he also bought her brand name goods and took her on trips to hot springs and various other places on the pretense of a business trip. The more I looked into it, the darker Nicholas was. The fact that he was cheating on me became a certainty, and I took action. When I confronted Nicholas with the receipts and credit card statements I had collected, he readily admitted the truth. "I'm tired from work and I need a break. I've been putting my paycheck in the house, so there's nothing wrong with that, right?" Nicholas reopened the conversation by saying, "If you had made a home where I could rest properly, I wouldn't have done this. You're responsible for your own actions. That's no reason to betray my family. How about more respect for me as a family? It's your fault, you're not with sexual charms, and the kids don't like me." Nicholas's insistence that it was not his fault, and his attempt to end the conversation, made my feelings cool down at once. Why had I devoted myself to such a person without complaint? I couldn't live with Nicholas any longer. No more. "I can't do it with you. Divorce me." Hearing my words, Nicholas grinned. "You said it." Nicholas continued happily. "I was going to stay married. Divorce is your wish. That's why I won't pay alimony or child support. If you want to leave, you can leave on your own." It seemed that Nicholas wanted to divorce me in order to start a new life with his unfaithful partner. However, if he initiated the divorce, he would demand alimony and child support. So it was ideal for him to initiate the fulfillment from me. I even think that maybe he left the receipt in his suit on purpose to make me aware of the affair. I was loath to do what Nicholas wanted, but that did not give me the option of not going through with the divorce. Rather than fighting over the money, I had to get rid of Nicholas as soon as possible. "I understand. I don't want a penny." "What?" Nicholas, who had not expected me to back down so easily, seemed to be anticlimactic. However, he soon got into a good mood. "I see. You're a very understanding guy, aren't you? And no property division either?" Nicholas has no intention of giving away any of his property as well as alimony and child support. He wants to spend all the money he has on his life with the woman he is cheating on me. The more I listen to him, the more I realize how selfish he is. I feel like an idiot for having spent so many years with such a miserly man. Okay. I'll make sure we have a written contract so you won't be complaining later. Yes. In exchange, I will not give you custody of the children. You promise not to have anything to do with me or the children after the divorce. That's right. They are more attached to you than to me, so that's better. You can rest assured that I won't contact you. Don't come crying to me later because you don't have enough money. Nicholas simply relinquished his parental rights to the children. I knew that to Nicholas, I and the children were nothing more than that. I was sure that the children would have no problems now that their father, who had neglected the family for so long, was no longer around. Thus, Nicholas and I divorced easily, and our 30-year marriage came to an end. After being evicted from the house by Nicholas, my children and I moved to an apartment in the city center. It was a condo that my parents had left to me. In fact, my parents owned several condominiums, and before they passed away, they changed one of them to my name. I didn't dare tell Nicholas about this because it was before we were married, but even after I became a full-time housewife, the rental income from the apartments was still coming in every month. Thanks to this, even without receiving alimony or child support from Nicholas, I was able to live a sufficiently wealthy life with the savings from the rent income, and was able to pay for my children's tuition when they went to college. Life after leaving Nicholas was uneventful. In fact, it was comfortable because I did not have to worry about Nicholas's moods. About a year after the divorce, I received a phone call from Nicholas. "Rachel, I heard you are living in an apartment in front of the station." It seems that Nicholas had heard about our current lifestyle through someone else. I was a stay-at-home mom, and there was no way I could support 2 kids, but Nicholas didn't seem to think that we were living a comfortable life. That apartment is famous for its high rent. How can a former housewife like you afford to live there? And with kids, you must have at least 2 bedrooms, right? I wanted 1 room for each of us, so I got a 3-bedroom apartment. 3 bedrooms? How much is the rent going to be? It's not that I'm paying rent, it's just that there was an empty room and I decided to take it. What do you mean? I told him that the apartment itself was left to me by my parents and was in my name. When he heard this, he became furious. What? You never said a word about that until now. I didn't think it was necessary to talk about it. I inherited it from my parents before we got married. You own the condo itself, which means all the residents' hefty rent was your money, right? How much money comes in every month? The money from the marriage is the common property of the couple. It's not right to keep it all to yourself. You probably didn't realize it, but I was also supplementing some of my rent income for living expenses and education. So I just spent the rest of the money myself. If you say so, then the money you were using to meet with your affair partner would have been joint property too. Don't quibble. Even if you made up some of the difference, it should be a substantial amount of savings. I'm entitled to my share of the property. I sighed heavily. You remember what you said yourself? You were the one who said you wouldn't share the property with me. We even signed a contract so that you wouldn't be a goner afterwards. I didn't realize then that you had so much money saved up. You can't allow your property to be reduced, but if my property is yours, it's better that way. You are selfish to the end of the line. If I had to share my property, I would have declared it properly. But I'm glad it didn't come to that. I couldn't accept the fact that the money my parents left for me would be given to you, a selfish person who betrayed the family. I returned it in disgust at the smallness of my ex-husband's character. Why was Nicholas contacting me now, anyway? When I wondered, Nicholas said with some difficulty. Well, let's not dwell on the past. I called you today because I wanted to discuss something with you. I could guess that it was not going to be a good consultation. As I had expected, Nicholas's request was for money. He had married the woman with whom he had been having an affair, but she had a habit of spending lavishly and had actually been in debt ever since they had started dating. I had thought her spending habits were rough when I checked her out, but in fact it seemed to be more than that. Unaware of the debt, Nicholas married and tried to pay it off with his savings, but his marriage partner kept spending money even as he was paying it back, so the debt kept mounting even after he had put all his savings into it. He knew he needed a large sum of money to pay off the debt all at once, and then he heard a rumor that I lived in a luxury apartment and appealed to me for a loan of money to pay off the debt. Of course I brushed it off. Why should I lend him money to pay off the debt of the woman with whom my ex-husband was having an affair? Moreover, according to the way Nicholas spoke, the woman's spending habits were not likely to be cured, and even if I lent him money, it was unlikely that he would return it. Then, Nicholas said something outrageous. Hey, Jacob is going to get a job soon, right? Can't we just take Jacob over here? Huh? I couldn't believe my ears. I couldn't believe that he had just brought back a child whom he had mistreated for so long. I can't make any progress with just my earnings. If you insist on not paying a penny, I'll ask Jacob to help. When Jacob gets a job, I'll ask him to give me a percentage of his salary. Don't be silly. Are you going to make your precious child clean up your cheater's debts? I'll have Jacob repay me for all the favors I've done in raising him. I made a mistake when I gave you custody of both of them. You have a daughter, Ava, and it's normal for one of them to be in my custody, isn't it? I can't give custody to the parent who cheated on me, of course. It's not natural that you didn't pay alimony despite you cheated on me. Besides, if you had custody, I wouldn't have to pay child support like you did, right? The college Jacob is attending now is a private medical school. Can you afford to pay for it? Nicholas was at a loss for words, but then he said in desperation, I can get him to pay for it, using whatever scholarship. I am so glad I didn't leave my children in Nicholas's care after all. He only cares about himself. You're out of the question. Jacob is already over 18 years old. It's not about custody, it's his own choice where he wants to live and with whom. He might want to live with me, the same sex. Of course not. Money? You live in an expensive apartment, you give him an allowance, and you want to tie him down with money? No, I'm not. They know why you and I divorced. Have you told them? This is a married couple's problem, right? Do you really want them on your side? I only told them I was divorcing him because of a difference in values. That's what they seem to sense. They already knew you were cheating on me without telling them. I don't know, maybe that's just what you think. Let me talk to Jacob directly. I'm sure Jacob will understand my feelings if we talk openly among men. Don't do that. Jacob said you are the worst kind of person to betray his family. There is no way he would understand. Besides, you promised not to have anything to do with me or the children as a condition of the divorce. Calling me like this is also a breach of contract. If you continue to insist on this, I will also demand child support and alimony as a breach of contract. As soon as I mentioned the word alimony, Nicholas became quiet and hung up the phone, mumbling excuses. Now he won't call me anymore. I was glad that Jacob and Ava had not been harmed. Nicholas, who had been relying on me for money, could no longer repay his debts at once because he had lost his count on me. Due to the debt that has accumulated, all of the money that Nicholas earns seems to have disappeared into interest payments. Moreover, his married partner continues to spend money, so his debts are increasing, but they show no sign of decreasing. I was appalled at Nicholas's lack of discernment, but I couldn't say the same for myself, having been married to him for 30 years. After that, my children and I continued our peaceful life. I never heard from Nicholas again, and I was able to live in peace. And now. Mom, are you ready? Yes, I'm coming. My son Jacob and daughter Ava got married respectively, started a family, and left home. They both have children, and now I am a grandmother with 4 grandchildren. Jacob and Ava often bring their children to visit me, as they care for me now that I am alone since they left home. Today, Jacob's family, Ava's family, and I are on a family trip with a total of 9 people. I may have been able to have such fun in my old age, thanks to the fact that I had parted from Nicholas once and for all. Someone told me that Nicholas has been wanting to divorce his married woman since then, but he has not been able to do so because his partner has not agreed to divorce him, and he is still spending his old age being chased by debts. He has no happy time with grandchildren and is just paying off his debts. Although it was his own fault, I still feel sorry for him. It is amazing how a temporary mistake can separate happiness from unhappiness.